from the headquarters of Telesa English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South, and I'm Emike Omoli. Welcome. The plane from Ecuador carrying Venezuelan migrants as part of the Return to the Homeland program has landed in Caracas. The flight left on Wednesday night filled with migrants who had lined up outside the Venezuelan embassy in Quito for a chance to get on board. President Nicolas Maduro has been facilitating flights across South America for Venezuelan citizens wishing to return home. More flights are expected in the coming days from Ecuador, but also from Peru and Argentina. Denise Herrera spoke to some of the migrants.
In the south of Quito, Joyce Mail and her family have packed their bags to finally return to their country after spending time in Ecuador without a job.
La situación de cada quien es diferente.
Each person's situation is different. A professional person might come and not be able to work because of the bureaucracy. I know that firsthand because my daughter had a baby here and they ask for your visa, which takes 6 months to get. And by then they find you $900. It's impossible to stay.
Y te la dan dentro de 6 meses. Y después de 6 meses ya estás multado por $900.
Young people, children, babies and adults have gathered outside the Venezuelan embassy where they shared some of their experience of living in Ecuador.
We have decided to go home and we thank President Nicolás Maduro for providing the plane.
We are going home with our heads held high. Things didn't go well here, but we're returning because it's our country.
The return to homeland plan promoted by President Nicolás Maduro has made it possible for Venezuela citizens to return to home. They have been living in bad conditions and suffer from xenophobia and discrimination. Representatives of the Venezuelan embassy have condemned a political and media strategy against the country, and they also said a meeting will be held in Caracas to discuss the flow of Venezuelan migrants.
Migrating can seem attractive, and there was a huge pull from a tremendous campaign on social media to persuade Venezuelans to live however they could, with promises of work that never materialized. Just ask these people.
As 2 buses arrived at the embassy, it was finally time to go home. Once at the airport, the Venezuelans waited for their flight with big smiles.
We are happy now and very hopeful that we can return home, see our families and take this opportunity to begin a new destiny.
After a flight of just a few hours, these Venezuelan families now have the chance to start again, back in their own country. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Ecuador.
Hundreds of Venezuelans in Colombia are also facing harsh living conditions and have asked to be repatriated, just like their compatriots in neighboring nations.
Veronica has been living in Colombia for 6 months. Before migrating, she believed in Colombia's democracy and respect for human rights. But reality has proved to be different.
I was told by a government official that President Duque prefers seeing prostitutes and thieves on the streets than informal workers. Then he ran me off from where I was selling my wares. We get no help from the government. Many of us are sleeping on the street.
Hundreds of migrants are experiencing similar situations, having thought that Colombia would receive them with open arms.
They think we're here to steal from them or to swindle them. We're treated with resentment. They avoid us as if we had the plague.
Leandro says he fails to understand how Venezuela received 5 million Colombian citizens and provided for them, and now Colombia fails to give migrants any humanitarian aid.
I'm from Maracaibo, where many Colombians live. We treat them well. We received them with open arms and gave them refuge. We tried to integrate them into our society and never mistreated them.
Situations like these are made worse by opportunistic men who have sought to prostitute Venezuelan women.
They take advantage of us. There have been government officials who have come here looking for girls and want to make them sell their bodies. They lie to them about honest work and turn them into prostitution.
Venezuelans living on the streets under constant threat admit there is no dignity to be found here and want to return home.
I truly believe we would be welcomed in Bogotá, but my experience here has made me want to go back home.
Over the past week, hundreds of Venezuelans have asked to be repatriated.
A military airplane belonging to the U.S. will be tested in Ecuador. Ecuador's Vice Minister of Defense, Diego Gomez, has announced that the test will start on Thursday. Gomez says the operation will increase the coordination of both countries in the fight against crime. But critics say Ecuador is giving up its sovereignty. The Organization of American States held an extraordinary meeting to discuss the migration issue in Venezuela. The OAS pushed for Venezuela to accept humanitarian aid, while OAS Secretary General Luis Almagro called on Latin American countries to share the burden and grant legal status to Venezuelan migrants. Venezuela says it wasn't consulted about the meeting and condemned it as another attempt to interfere in its affairs.
Thank you very much. We reject the call for this extraordinary session of the Permanent Council, and again regret the recurring practice of this organization of not consulting at any time or opinion. Once again, this is a sign of hostile and unfriendly attitude of those who called this meeting towards Venezuela. We want to record the vigorous rejection by our Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela of this meeting. It is again being used as a platform to attack our country through a selective and clearly politicized approach to Venezuelan reality. So, we also want to make clear that we reject the meeting, its results, its decisions, and anything else that comes out of it. This will not be applied and will not be of no consequence for us.
The Cuban Foreign Relations Vice Minister Alvarado Moreno denounced the Organization of American States. He says their action on Nicaragua and Venezuela is interventionist.
The permanent representative of the United States to the OAS called for the organization to take action against Nicaragua and to maintain the ongoing dirty war against Venezuela. At the same time, he violated all international protocols by insulting Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega. The Cuban government firmly rejects any policy that tries to force a regime change or apply the Monroe Doctrine in Nicaragua.
The United States has declared Nicaragua's civil unrest a threat to the region's security. However, Nicaragua has rejected that statement. The U.S.'s comments came during a United Nations Security Council meeting. In response, thousands marched in the streets of Managua on Wednesday in support of President Ortega's government. President Daniel Ortega told the demonstrators that the U.S. has a long history of interference in Central America.
We say to the American government, we say to the American Congress members, if they want to contribute to peace in Nicaragua, then respect Nicaragua as a government nation, as a nation that is worthy as any other nation in the world, that deserves respect and that is due respect.
At the debate at the Security Council, Russia and China demanded that the U.S. respect Nicaragua's sovereignty. They said that the country is not a threat to international peace and therefore should not be submitted to discussion of any kind. Brazil's federal police are asking that corruption charges be brought against President Michel Temer. If approved, he could be suspended from office. Temer has survived 2 previous attempts to charge him. A federal police report says there is evidence the leader received bribes from construction giant Odebrecht, which is at the heart of a regional corruption scandal. The report will be sent to the Attorney General to evaluate. If she chooses to proceed, 2/3 of the lower house of Congress would have to vote to suspend Temer and put him on trial. The House has twice rejected previous charges against him. Fernando Haddad, the running mate of Brazil's ex-president Luis Inácio Lula da Silva in the upcoming election, has been campaigning at a Volkswagen car factory outside of Sao Paulo. He, like Temer, is defending himself against corruption charges.
I've given my position about Alckmin in this regard. I think the public prosecutor is too important to let itself be used. In my case, because of vengeance. The vengeance of a businessman against me. It doesn't make sense. A businessman was harmed. It shouldn't be allowed that institutions are used for electoral ends.
Time for a short break. Join us in about a minute.
So yeah, national security is one of the most powerful notions in modern times. To swindle, I think, people, to do things that are not in their best interest, and to support massive military complexes that are not in anybody's interest, but that are like cancers feeding on society, frankly.
Watch a series where the U.S. geopolitical strategies as an empire representing the culture of war and propaganda are shown, and how this has served as a tool of social control. Psy-War. Saturday. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Thousands of Colombians have protested in Bogota against the murders of social leaders. The demonstrators gathered outside Congress to demand a stop to the killings. Some 160 social leaders and human rights defenders have been murdered in Colombia this year. Lawmakers were debating the issue, asking the government to introduce measures to prevent the slaughter. The ELN guerrillas have freed 3 soldiers in an attempt to restart peace talks with Colombia's new government. The 3 soldiers were detained by the ELN in early August. On Tuesday, the insurgent group announced that it would release the detained in an effort to resume peace talks with the government. Thousands of students in Mexico have demonstrated against violence after a series of brutal attacks by vigilante groups at the National University.
Students, thousands of them, marching in solidarity with their fellows at the Science and Humanities College, or CCH. They've been attacked by a vigilante group, or poros as they're known in Mexico. The young people blame the college authorities, especially the rector, Enrique Graue.
One group of
students was practically kidnapped. A veterinary student was murdered. A high school girl was even killed here. There were robberies at the university. Teachers have been killed. Students have been murdered. There have been shootings right here. We are sick of this.
The response of the rector, who was watching President Peña Nieto's State of the Union address at the time of the attack, has angered even more the student representatives in nearly all the faculties.
We need structural changes that ensure our safety, so that the ones who hired the poros and the poros themselves are brought to justice. And well, we are all here. All the community who Graue said will never protest are here demanding our rights.
This protest was held on the eve of the anniversary of Mexico's most notorious student massacre at Tlatelolco Square in 1968.
Let the university authorities see that we are strong, that we students are capable, and that we haven't forgotten the 43, nor the 68, nor all the history in between.
The young students presented their demands right outside the rector's office. The 44 student councils agreed to meet once the 48-hour strike is over to decide what action the student movement will take next.
Communities on the border between El Salvador and Guatemala are campaigning against contamination from mining operations. They fear the reopening of the Cerro Blanco mine will be an environmental nightmare.
Inhabitants of Asunción Mita in the municipality of Jutiapa in the south of Guatemala are bracing for the impact. The Cerro Blanco mine was closed 18 years ago. Now it's being operated by Canadian company Bluestone Resources.
We are in a region that is considered one of the zones of natural arsenic content. But with all the mining that is taking place, they are damaging the health of its inhabitants in Guatemala and El Salvador.
The mining project also poses a threat to the Ostor River. It's the main water source in El Salvador.
The groundwater reserves will also be contaminated by chemicals and heavy equipment that the mine will use.
The mine covers an area of approximately 14 square kilometers. A recent study revealed that it contains more than 1 million ounces of gold and silver. Environmentalists say the mining is destructive and water pollution is a real concern that cannot be ignored. They say these issues do not seem to worry transnationals like Bluestone, who take advantage of the weakness of the region's governments.
And as we have seen, the mine is situated on the border with El Salvador, making it one of the most affected areas.
In El Salvador, metallic mining has been prohibited since March of 2017. Meanwhile, in Guatemala, the laws are still weak. There are 386 licenses of extractive projects, of which 168 are of metallic mining.
Paraguay has announced it will move its embassy back to Tel Aviv from Jerusalem. Paraguay's Foreign Affairs Minister made the announcement a little more than 3 months after the embassy was transferred to Jerusalem. Paraguay's new president, Mario Abdo Benitez, took the decision, citing his desire to contribute to peace in the region.
Paraguay wants to contribute to the intensification of regional and international diplomatic efforts in order to achieve a wide, fair and lasting peace in the Middle East.
Soon after the announcement, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the closure of Israel's embassy in Paraguay. An official statement released via Twitter expressed great concern over Paraguay's decision and questioned ongoing bilateral relations. The Guyana Teachers Union will meet with the government with the hopes of ending their strike. The union says they are willing to accept a 15% wage increase, down from the original 40% requested. If the teachers and the government fail to come to an agreement after this meeting, they'll head into arbitration. However, that means teachers will have to return to the classrooms.
If you agree, then essentially the strike is over. If you disagree and you move to arbitration, then too that the strike is over, because the union has indicated that they go to arbitration and they call off the strike. So either way, I see it bringing some sort of closure at this point in time.
Meanwhile, unions in Trinidad and Tobago will meet with the Prime Minister in a few hours in an attempt to stave off their strike. The joint trade union movement wants workers to walk off the job on Friday. Individual unions plan to march to raise their own concerns, but many stand in solidarity with the workers of state-owned oil company Petrotrin, who will lose their jobs when the refinery is closed. The Prime Minister says he is open to dialogue.
If the OWTU presents anything that could improve on the current situation, we in the government will be the first to grab it and put it into force. When we restructure Petrotrin and create a new entity managed with sanity, we are going to offer the employees at Petrotrin shareholding in that new company.
Caribbean leaders say they are making more strides than ever before to implement the Caribbean's single market and economy. Barbados was host to the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee. It's the second of 3 regional meetings planned this year. Prime Minister Mia Mottley has been spearheading efforts to make freedom of movement by CARICOM nationals a reality.
The signing of the Protocol on Contingent Rights was the first. No one in the Caribbean will move easily without understanding what will be the implications for their spouses, their dependent parents, or their children. And it is in this real way that we have made a definable difference to our people.
Time now for another one of our breaks. Join us in about a minute.
We are present at every event where our nations are staring. We believe in a new global vision, united in every broadcasting. We keep expanding our horizons and working on a closer and better communication. Now, in Grenada, Telesur, the news source from South America and the Caribbean.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. A fast-moving fire north of Redding, California has caused drivers to abandon their vehicles, and several mountain communities had to be evacuated. By late Wednesday, the fire spread across 5,000 acres. Around 600 firefighters are working to contain the blaze. A 6.6 magnitude earthquake has hit the Japanese island of Hokkaido, killing at least 8 people and destroying homes. The powerful quake triggered landslides, leaving dozens of people missing. An estimated 3 million homes are without power after a thermal plant was damaged by the quake. A government spokesman said the relief effort will be stepped up with around 40,000 rescue workers. 10,000 counter-protesters overshadowed a rally held by Germany's far right in Hamburg. Around 180 members of the far right gathered to demand the resignation of German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Their rally was put to shame, however, by a far bigger counter-protest, which police estimated was attended by 10,000 people. The counter-demonstrators displayed banners condemning hate. Rival protesters were kept apart with police barricades and water cannons. And now it's time to look at some other stories making headlines around the world.
The trial of a Chicago police officer accused of first-degree murder of a black teen was met with protests demanding a conviction. Officer Jason Van Dyke allegedly shot 17-year-old Laquan McDonald 16 times in 2014. Video footage of the murder sparked widespread protests. The officer is pleading not guilty. United States President Donald Trump has denied allegations that he suggested the assassination of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Journalist Bob Woodward, who reported on the Watergate scandal in the 1970s, accuses him of planning an assassination attempt in his book entitled Fear, Trump in the White House. During a press briefing on Wednesday, Trump dismissed the book as total fiction.
The book is a work of fiction. If you look back at Woodward's past, he had the same problem with other presidents. He likes to get publicity, sell some books. But we have done more as an administration than any other administration in already less than 2 years.
At least 26 people have been killed and over 90 wounded in a twin bomb blast at a gym in Kabul, Afghanistan. The blast occurred on Wednesday afternoon. A suicide bomber self-detonated in the gym. An hour later, a car bomb exploded outside the premises, targeting police officers and emergency services. Injured police officers remain in critical condition. The Taliban has denied responsibility.
The presidents of North and South Korea have agreed to hold the third inter-Korean summit later this month. The denuclearization of the region will be top of the agenda. The discussion will also focus on breaking the stalemate between the United States and North Korea regarding the latter's nuclear program. The meeting will be held in Pyongyang, North Korea, on the 18th of September. An art installation in the Spanish town of Gexto allows visitors to jump onto a trampoline adorned with a picture of Donald Trump. People climb a short flight of stairs to take a dive onto a mat imprinted with the giant picture of the US president. The festival's theme this year is post-conflict, and exhibitors believe that there is no one better to illustrate the theme than Donald Trump.
The artists Dutchman Eric Kessels and Thomas Melender say that jumping on the face of the most powerful man in the world gives you a feeling of liberation and catharsis that, even if only for some seconds, makes you feel as if you are taking revenge against him. So it does seem to have permeated, because this has had a lot of repercussion.
And on that note, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories, find them on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And don't forget to join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for Telesur English. I'm Emika Omolu, and thank you again for watching.